The Witch of Blackbird Pond, Chapter 13, Part 2. Judith lingered exasperatingly in front of the little mirror that evening. She was wearing the new blue wool dress for the first time, with a snowy white collar and deep cuffs, and she had never looked lovelier. Her eyes were a deep blue in the candlelight, the clear white of her skin flushed with a secret excitement. Kit fidgeted impatiently. It didn't matter how she looked. William was waiting already, and they must all get away quickly before John arrived. If only Aunt Rachel and Uncle Matthew could find something to do, and Mercy could be sitting alone in the firelight. They were too late, however. John Holbrook stepped inside the door just as the two girls rustled down the stairs, and his eyes were lively with admiration as he waited, with a courtly bow, to let them go ahead of him into the kitchen. Judith tipped back her head and smiled up at him provocatively. Rachel put aside her work, and even Matthew came to the door to see the young folks off. "I'm so glad you've come," Judith dimpled. "Now we can all walk together." "I'm not going to the husking," John told her, smiling. "I think I shall stay here and visit with Mercy instead." "But they're all expecting you. Mercy doesn't mind. Do you, Mercy?" John shook his head, still smiling. There was a reflection of Judith's excitement in her own pale face. "I think I shall stay here," he insisted. "There is something I want to speak to your father about." His words had a breathtaking effect. Judith took a step backward, one hand at her throat, and a wave of scarlet spread from the white collar to her black curls. "Tonight?" she whispered in unbelief. Then suddenly joy came flooding past every doubt and restraint. "Oh, Father," she cried impetuously, "he doesn't need to miss the husking, does he? You know what he wants to ask. Say yes now so we can go to the party together." Matthew Wood was bewildered. "Why, daughter," he rebuked her. "What sort of talk is this?" "Shameless talk, and I don't care," laughed Judith, tossing her black curls. "Oh, Father, you must have guessed. John doesn't need to tell you." Such radiance was irresistible. Matthew Wood's stern features softened, and when he turned to John, he was actually smiling. "If you will come courting such a headstrong, brazen girl," he said indulgently, "then I can only give you both my blessing. Perhaps you can teach her some meekness." So I'm going to stop, and I want to make sure that we're clear on what's just happened. I want you to think about what Judith and her father and everybody else has interpreted by John saying, "I need to talk to your father for a minute." What does Judith think he wants to talk to her about? And what does he really want to talk to him about? John stood dumbfounded, his pale face shocked, completely colorless. He seemed totally unable to collect his wits. "Tell them," urged Kit silently and desperately. "You've got to say something, John, right away." As if he had heard her, John opened his white lips and made a hoarse sound. "Sir, he attempted. Then, still incredulous, he looked back at Judith. Every trace of pride and haughtiness was wiped from her face. Such utter happiness and trust shone from those blue eyes that John faltered, and in that moment of hesitation he was lost. William's heavy hand descended on his shoulder. Aunt Rachel held out both hands to him with tears in her eyes. Then Mercy came slowly from the hearth, her head up, her great eyes clear and lustrous. "I'm so glad for you both," she said warmly. Only Kit could say nothing. "Perhaps I dreamed it," she thought, watching Mercy. But she knew she had not dreamed the love in Mercy's eyes that summer evening. No one but herself would ever know. Now, no one but herself would ever know. She had counted on Judith's pride, but Mercy did not have Judith's pride. It was something much stronger than pride that upheld her. And I think that Kit is trying to say something about Mercy's strength here, but what is it? What strength does Mercy have? And what does she mean that it's stronger than pride? Presently the four set out together into the still, frosty twilight. Judith took John's arm confidingly, still carried quite beyond constraint on her wave of happiness. You'll never know, she chattered. You saved me from being the most outrageous hussy, John. I had a scheme. I'm not sure I would have dared, actually. But now... Now what? Kit asked, walking behind them. She ached with her own stifled protests. He can't do this, she told herself over and over. But she knew that he could. John understood Mercy. He knew that she had never in her life reached her hand for so much as a crust of bread that Judith might want. If he should hurt Judith now, Kit knew Mercy would never forgive either him or herself. Lost in her own thoughts, Kit barely noticed that William's dignified pace was even more deliberate than usual. They had dropped some distance behind the others when a purposeful hand grasped her own elbow. "Wait a moment, Kit," said William. "Let them go ahead. I want to talk to you." The quiet resolution in his voice penetrated her racing thoughts. Reluctantly, she gave him a corner of her attention. The intent look in her eyes, even in the waning light, warned her of what was coming. Oh no, not after all that had happened. She was tempted to run for shelter of the fireside and Mercy. "I didn't mean to speak tonight," William was saying. "But watching those two, don't you envy them, their happiness, Kit?" "I can't bear it," she thought in panic. "Not tonight." The last two words escaped in a half-whisper. William took them literally. "Tomorrow, then. Let me speak to your uncle. You won't need to help me out," he added with unwonted humor. "I am quite capable of speaking for myself." Kit stood shivering in the damp twilight. "This silk dress is not warm enough for New England," she thought irrelevantly. Then she made an effort to gather her forces. William's question was not unexpected after all. She had thought that her answer was all ready. "Please, William," she whispered, "don't speak to him yet." William looked down at her, perplexed. "Why not? Don't you want to marry me, Kit?" She hesitated. "I had not thought of getting married so soon." "Judith is just 16, he reminded her. "I know, but I'm still a stranger, William. There are so many things I have to learn." "That's true," he agreed. He was silent a moment. "I won't hurry you, Kit," he said reasonably. "The house can't be finished before spring anyway. I'll wait for your answer." What her answer would be, he seemed to have not the slightest doubt. As they walked on, his hand remained on her elbow with a new possessiveness. Laughter spilled from the open door. The great barn was glowing with lanterns swinging from the hand-hewn timbers. There was a fragrance of new hay and the warm, reassuring smell of cattle. The gaily dressed young people sat in a circle around a vast mound of silk-tasseled corn, and already the husking had begun. Shouts of welcome greeted the newcomers, and the circle shifted to make room for them. To Kit's surprise, the husking was fun, enlivened by singing and wagers and jokes that